In contemporary hair transplant marketing, there's a troubling trend. Real technical issues, real aesthetic issues have been largely relegated to the back burner. And in this video, we're going to talk about slit making, how important slit making is to your hair transplant outcomes. Recipient side design and slit creation are today one of the most underappreciated yet critical determinants of graft survival and final cosmetic appearance. Choices such as slit orientation, whether to give a coronal slit or a sagittal slit, the difference you can note here in this video, the shape of the slit maker, slit angle and depth, pattern of placement are often glossed over in favor of more generic marketing terms like density and natural look. However, recent studies have illuminated how these variables impact the amount of vascular damage, the blood supply damage that we are doing during the procedure, the graft stability and aesthetic results, especially when your hair is kept short. Among incision strategies, whether slits are interlocking or whether slits are coronal or sagittal, orientation of slits offers certain advantages in creating illusions of density and natural appearance. Conversely, rigid, geometric, or overly parallel patterns tend to betray themselves under close scrutiny, especially when the hair is kept short. You need to know that the scalp is supplied by a network of blood vessels, the deep vascular plexus. And besides this, there is a superficial subpapillary plexus, and these two are connected by intercommunicating vertical vessels, and damage to either of these plexuses, and especially the deep one, can lead to ischemia, can lead to necrosis, and more commonly, reduced graft survival. And skin thickness matters. The average scalp thickness is 4.3 millimeters. And this tends to reduce somewhat when you have alopecia. And when we know that the average slit is about 4 millimeters in length, because that is the length of the follicle. If you have to insert a follicle which is 4 millimeters long, you will have to make an incision which is 4 millimeters long or slightly lesser. So slits that penetrate deeper risk damaging deeper vessels. Very shallow or improperly placed slits, on the other hand, would risk pop out and poor anchorage. So coming to the crux of the matter today, what we're going to discuss today, interlocking incisions and how they matter. Interlocking refers to creating recipient sites in a staggered or nested pattern. Each new row of slits is placed to fill the gaps between slits in the previous row. Rather than lining up slits exactly in parallel rows, interlocking enables grafts to be positioned more tightly without the risk of collision or overlap. And the key benefits of interlocked slits are, number one, when grafts are placed in interlocked fashion, there is less see-through scalp. To the observer, the hair looks denser than it would be if the same number of grafts were placed in parallel rows. For example, 10 grafts placed interlocked will appear nearly twice as dense compared with non-interlocked incisions, parallel arrangement of slits. Interlocking allows grafts to nestle in between previous ones, and this reduces wasted space. And it also reduces the tendency of grafts to fight for space, that is, adjacent grafts pushing each one out, popping, or altering the intended angulation. Especially when hair is kept short, patterns are more visible. Scalp contrast, spacing, exit angles, and slit designs all matter. Interlocking helps avoid long visible gaps or lines that run parallel and become obvious under short hair. The staggered arrangement breaks up visual linearity and mimics natural, somewhat random distribution of follicles. And another crucial element is slit orientation. Coronal or lateral slits, as we can call them interchangeably, are oriented perpendicular to the direction of hair growth or laterally, as opposed to the sagittal incision, also called as parallel incision. So several papers, including mathematical modeling, suggest that coronal slits offer certain advantages, and I'm going to enumerate them here. Trigonometric analysis show that with coronal orientation of slits, the effective slit size is less dependent on acute angle of entry of the blade. For example, if both slits, coronal and sagittal, are made at 30 degrees angulation to the scalp, sagittal incisions end up causing longer surface wounds and cause more scar tissue that follows. And this has been proved beyond reasonable doubt. Next, we come to the capacity of higher graft density. Because coronal slits allow smaller effective wound lengths and less skin trauma, on the corollary more skin available in between, more incisions per centimeter square are possible without disproportionate injury like in sagittal slits. And then we have better control over the exit angle, or what you call as tilt or shingling. With coronal slits, the anterior and the posterior the front and the back walls of the slit can better grip the graft, helping maintain the angle, preventing upward poking and allowing hair shafts to shingle over one another. And this improves coverage, especially when the hair is kept shorter. When interlocking pattern design is combined with coronal slits, where every graft's exit and front can be seen clearly, the visual density gets enhanced, maximized. So here are certain important principles. The graft placed in coronal slits should exit with its front facing forward. That when we have a graft with three hair, the three hair should be visible up front, not sideways. Because if they are visible sideways, like in sagittal slits, the visual appeal will be lesser because you're only seeing one hair. But when you see all hair together in coronal slits, this will enhance the eventual visual illusion. Staggered or interlocking placement avoids shadow lines or rows through which light passes and shows the scalp. And this with shorter hair makes the scalp look more visible. Each and every graft should have a similar tilt and direction like native hair surrounding. With coronal slits, better control of direction is possible, helping the grafted hair sit flatter and cover more scalp surface per unit of hair. And then we come to appropriate blade size and depth. Smaller blades mean smaller slits. Smaller slits mean less trauma, better anchoring of grafts, and more slits per centimeter square, leading to higher density. Also, depth control ensures that grafts are not placed too shallow, which risks pop out, or slits are too deep. Research that has been done over coronal slits indicates that minimized surface wound size helps with more grafts per area and less wounding. While some surgeons use a geometric grid design, parallel rows, or very symmetric patterns for slit creation, these have drawbacks, and these are visible more when the hair is kept short. And these drawbacks include visible lines or bands. Parallel rows produce bands, especially visible when hair is kept short. And these linear patterns appear unnatural because human hair doesn't grow in perfect uniform rows. Under close inspection, a rigid linear graft distribution betrays a manufactured rather than a biological appearance. And then predictable light shadow issues. Parallel alignment allows the scalp to be visible through uniform gaps because light penetrates similarly through rows, creating what could be called as see-through areas. On the other hand, interlocking breaks this up. And then reduced illusion of density. Even if the numeric density, that is grafts per centimeter square, is high, if placed evenly in parallel, non-interlocked rows, the visual effect is less than half of interlocked incisions or staggered placement, with the result that essentially you lose effective coverage even if the graft count is high. So you can see on the internet people getting 8,000, 10,000 grafts, but the result is not as good as a procedure with 3,500 grafts, giving the same visual appearance. And lastly, sagittal slits are less forgiving when the hair is kept short because at longer hair length, hair shafts can overlap, cover gaps, and disguise regular patterns. But when hair is short, every slit, every gap, and the angle is more exposed. Thus, geometric regularity becomes quickly obvious and may look artificial. So there is always a trade-off. In striving for a more dense appearance via interlocking and coronal slits, the surgeon must guard safety, graft survival, and long-term planning. While coronal slits can reduce the surface wound area, there is a definite risk of damaging deeper vasculature or perforating important subdermal plexus if blade size is not well controlled, if you use cheap needles for slit making. Literature points out that coronal slits have a greater chance of damaging feeder vessels in certain situations. Thus, proper depth, blade width, tumescence, and choice of instrument in the clinic is crucial. And then pop-outs and graft competition with one another. Interlocking demands precision. If site creation is rushed or inaccurate, grafts may not fit cleanly, leading to popping out, misorientation, or competition for real estate on the scalp. Time and care are needed, staff must be well trained, and then donor limitations. High cosmetic density illusions may require tight packing, and this utilizes more grafts. Especially in patients with limited donor reserves, this needs to be balanced. And lastly, tighter and smaller slits and well-spaced interlocking reduce visible scarring and allow faster healing. But overdensity without respect to tissue limits can lead to ischemia, can lead to delayed wound healing, or even necrosis or the skin dying off. And there have been several cases reported on the internet. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions about hair transplant techniques, if you want to know more about my DHX method, of which interlocking coronal slits is an inalienable part, do let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll get back to you shortly. Have a nice day and God bless you.